Shabbat Shalom. Thanks to Larry Niemer and a gift in memory of Eileen Niemer, I had the great blessing and gift of being able to move offices this week. So I'm in a brand new office here at Shaarey Zedek, and it is beautiful. I invite all of you to come check it out. But you know, maybe not right now, maybe a couple minutes. But we all have had this opportunity of moving to a new space, and we have the great gift of being able to redecorate. And so as I was moving from one office to the next, I had to make sure I knew exactly what was coming over. You know, you have to set it up just right. Which pictures go on the desk? Which pictures go on the bookshelf? What signs go up on the wall? Because once we've moved into a space, we use things like pictures and signs to remind us of who we are, to remind us of what we want to accomplish, to remind us of those who are most important in our lives. So of course I have my wedding photo. Tell Rebecca she's not here this weekend. Of course I have the wedding photo in the office. And it's a reminder of that joyful day. Of course I have the blessing of the most amazing wife. I don't really need a reminder, but there the wedding picture sits, a reminder to me of those joyful days. I have pictures of my kids, of course, from different stages of their life. They're still young, they're still growing, but we have those different pictures to remind us of who we are and what we believe. I'll have, eventually, if they ever get up on the wall, I have my ordination certificate. Now, certainly that's a reminder to me of the hard work I put in to going to rabbinical school. And when children ask, Rabbi, how long does it take to become a rabbi? I can always explain to them, I went all the way through the 21st grade. That's how long it takes to become a rabbi. And I have a big wall right now that I have not yet decided what is going to go on that wall. How will it help remind me of who I am and what I believe? How will it help remind all those who come into my office of who we are and what we believe? We called Barbara Heller to see if the DIA wanted to loan us anything, but apparently they don't have anything quite available yet. But what goes up on that wall? And as I was moving things from one office to the next, I came across probably the one picture, the one item that reminds me most of all of who I am, what I believe, and what I stand for. It's probably hard to see from where you're sitting, but it's a picture of my oldest son, Caleb. He's sporting a mustache and a fedora like I like to wear on Friday nights, the hat, not the mustache. And at the top it says 100. It was a school assignment that he was given, I think, in the first grade. And the question was that he had to fill out, when I am 100 years old. So what did Caleb write? He wrote, when I am 100 years old, for all my years, even when I'm 100, I will never stop praying to God. As a rabbi, I will lead people to Judaism and help them to live their life in peace. That was a 7-year-old writing that. At the end of the day, that's who I am. That's my job. And whether Caleb becomes a rabbi or not doesn't really matter. Because every day that I look at my kids, whether in real life or even at their pictures, I'm reminded of who I am, of what I believe, and of what I stand for. We read in our Torah portion this week, Parashat Ki Tetzei. And here Moses is addressing our ancestors for among the last times before they enter the promised land without him. It is, in essence, his living will. And he leaves to them in this Torah portion 74 mitzvot. More than 12% of all the commandments found in our Torah are found in this week's Torah portion. And the Torah portion ends with a commandment, Zachor, remember. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way, how they attacked you from behind. Now the pshat, the basic reading of the text, seems to tell us that Amalek attacked us from behind, thus hurting those who were unable to protect themselves. The women, the children, those who were unarmed. And that's why they are, as Robert taught us earlier, considered the epitome of evil in the history of the Jewish people. But the Midrash comes to teach us slightly different about Amalek. What they say is that Amalek is the biggest evil, not just because they tried to hurt us physically, but because our people were at their spiritual weakest. They had just come out of slavery for 4 centuries. They didn't fully trust in God yet, despite the 10 plagues, despite the crossing of the Red Sea. They didn't really have a strong sense of faith in that God would always be there for them. And so that's when Amalek came. And Amalek then, for the rabbis, comes to represent anybody who threatens Torah. Anyone who comes after those who may be a little weak in their Judaism and tries to convince them to leave the fold, tries to convince them to become even more non-practicing. Zachor, the Torah tells us, remember. And in this week's Torah portion, there's so much we're supposed to remember. How can we remember 74 mitzvot, let alone 613 in the entire Torah? But Moses has an idea. Moses tells us, and you're welcome to turn with me if you like in your Chumashim. I'm on page 1118. And here we are in the midst of our Parashah, Deuteronomy chapter 22. And Moshe tells our ancestors, Gedilim ta'aseh lach al arba kanfot. You shall make tassels on the 4 corners of the garment with which you cover yourself. Now the mitzvah has already been given in the book of Numbers, the mitzvah of tzitzit, of wearing fringes. That whenever we put on a 4-cornered garment, we have to attach fringes to the corners. And now in this week's Torah portion, it elaborates a little bit, and the reason we have so many loops and ties is because of these gedilim. Don't just put fringes at the corner of your talis, Moshe teaches us. You have to wrap it just so. And if you look, and you're welcome to take out the corners of your talis, take out your tzitzit and look at them, how they're wrapped just so. Each of those knots and twists and wraps add up on all 4 corners to 613. The tzitzit, the fringes at the corner of our talis, are supposed to remind us of the mitzvot, the commandments to which you're bound. Like pictures on a wall in an office, the tzitzit are a reminder of who we are, of what we stand for, and what God expects of us. Now, a week or 2 ago, I sent a memo to the Board of Trustees. And we have a wonderful custom here that each week a different board member comes out and stands at the Torah, stands at the shulchan, and serves as a gabbai, one of the most important roles in all the synagogue. It's a gabbai's job to make sure that the Torah is read correctly. Because no matter who's reading it, how great they are, should even a little mistake be made, it's the gabbai's job to correct the Torah reader. Because every word of Torah must be read perfectly. And in that memo to the Board of Trustees, as they're serving on our behalf as Gabbayim there at the Shulchan, as representatives of us to make sure that the Torah is read correctly, I encourage the women to consider wearing a talit. We men wear them. Of course, many wear them every day. The rest of us wear them in shul whenever we come into shul. And we know we men need reminders. You women know that we men need reminders. And that's what the tzitzit are. We don't just put them over our shoulders and forget that we have them on. It's a commandment to look upon them and to remember who we are, what we stand for, and what God expects of us. And that's why it's a mitzvah, by the way, only to wear tzitzit in the daylight, when you can see them. That's why we don't wear the talit at night during Mariv services, with the exception of one night of the year where we take out our talit even for the nighttime service. What one night of the year is that? Kol Nidre, the only time we wear a talit. So if we're commanded to remember, why does that commandment not extend to women as well? Now, it actually says in the Talmud that women are bound to the mitzvah of tzitzit. But then Rabbi Shimon comes and says, well, women are exempt from time-bound positive mitzvot, so women, you don't have to wear it. Maimonides comes to clarify about 5 centuries after that. He comes to say, women, you absolutely can wear tzitzit, but whether you say a bracha or not is up to you. Whether you put them on with the blessing or not is up to you. Now, about 500 years after him, the great Rabbi Moshe Isserles came and said, you know, a woman who wears a talis is really prideful. Women shouldn't wear talis. It's men's clothing. And it actually says in our Torah portion this week that women should not wear men's clothing and men should not wear women's clothing. And I spoke about that in my email Devar Torah. But yet, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, the great Orthodox rabbi of the 20th century, he came to say not only can women wear talisim, not only can women wear talit, but they should say a bracha when they put it on as well. Because we are commanded to remember. And we know in our own day and age, there's so much going on. We can't even remember our appointments. We have to tell our cell phone to vibrate or ring every time we're supposed to go somewhere, let alone what God expects of us. And so it's that much more important to put on the talit, to attach tzitzit, fringes to the corners, to remember who we are, what we stand for, and what God expects of us. Now I'll note in our congregation, most of the girls, when they become bat mitzvah, wear talit. But then they stop. Perhaps that's because they look around and they don't see any other women wearing talit. So I'm encouraging, not requiring, encouraging any woman who might consider it to put on a talit, and especially our board members when they ascend the bima. It's radical, I know, I'm a pretty radical guy. But it's a mitzvah to remember. It's a mitzvah to think about who we are, what we stand for, and how we're going to make a difference in this world. Now we know just this last week, Shimon Peres, former president and prime minister, had a stroke. And all of a sudden, he, as among the last of the founding fathers of the state of Israel, he lays in a hospital bed. And I couldn't help but ask the question, does the founding dream of Zionism lay in a hospital bed with him? But he stands as a reminder to us all of a time when Israel united us as a people, when Israel stood for everything that we stand for, when Israel held itself to the highest ideals. And we look at him and we remember what Israel is meant to be, what Israel is to all of us. And we're inspired and we're encouraged to go out and bring that message to the world. To remind everybody of the tikvah, the hope, liot am chovshi be'artzenu, to truly be a free people in our own land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem. We need reminders, whether it's Shimon Peres or any of the other founding fathers, or whether it's the tzitzit, the fringes we wear at the corner of our talesim, or whether it's a simple message from our children to remind us of who we are, what we stand for, what God expects of us, how we're going to make a difference in this world. This parasha of Ki Tetzei, may God help us lizkor, to remember. May God help us use the tzitzit as a reminder. May God help us look to those who came before and what they stood for. And may God help us look to our children to know that we have to make this world a place worthy of them. May God help us to remember. May God help us to do all that God expects of us. May God grant us the strength to make a difference in this world. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. And let us say together, Amen.